Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to another interview with a game dev. I'm your host, Sinister. Before we go any further, if you like our content, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this out. So, with any further ado, I'm going to let our guest introduce himself.
Hey, so I'm Richard Hinckley. I'm the director on Demon Crush, and I've been working in the games industry now since I guess about 2008. So that's about 14 years. Um, anyway, yeah, I've always kind of really loved indie games, and even though I've worked mostly in AAA, I just think it's a really fun thing to do.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go start at the beginning. What got you into gaming?
Well, the first game that really made me want to get into gaming was Kung Fu Master, and that's
Oh, yes. Oh,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
arcade, the
It's based
arcade game,
on
yes.
Yeah, well, I had a Commodore 64 version of it,
Oh,
but
yeah. So did
but
I.
it was also on the NES, and I think that was actually Miyamoto. I think Shigeru Miyamoto actually worked on the NES version of it. But I had
Yeah.
never seen, Game of Death. I was too young to be watching that stuff then. But yeah, I thought that was just really kind of a fun game, and it made me. I kind of wanted to mod it, but in the 1980s, working on a C64, there's no modding. That's not a thing. So I thought, well, all right, I got to learn how to program because that's the one thing that you need. You can't make a game with only art, but back then, with just one programmer, you could maybe make something. So yeah, that's my origin story.
Okay. Other than the Kung Fu Masters, like any other favorite games that you enjoyed growing up?
Oh yeah, I mean, I played them all the time, but yeah, there was that one. I used to play this really old game, Jumpman, and then as I
Uh-huh.
got older, I got an NES, and I mean, I remember pre-internet talking to other kids at school about Zelda and like where you find like the secrets and stuff like that.
Right.
There was no like centralized thing where you could just type it in and GameFAQs pops up and tells you like it was a real like process of sort of discovery and like socially with your friends you talk about stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of fun growing up. A lot of good memories of that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I remember that too. Like, oh, the magazines, like sometimes those magazines have maps and stuff like that. It's oh yeah, I can. I've been trying to find this thing, and then, of course I look at them. Oh, I skipped it. Things like that. But
Yeah, you ever read like the old like Nintendo Power or anything like
yes.
that
Oh
from
yeah,
way back?
Nintendo Power. Of course, EGM. That's basically my favorite.
Yeah,
Game Pro, it was okay, but I mean, the only thing I liked about them, they give like pro tips here now and then. But yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. That was a lot of fun, but I don't know. It was kind of a different time. You had to
right.
make games a little differently, and you could have real secrets and mysteries that players either found or didn't find, and that was kind of it. There's a lot of neat stuff there. I could ramble about that for a while, but yeah, just a different time.
Yeah, because since you mentioned the Commodore, because my family and I we have like the 128 version,
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, because I mean playing some of those same games because back then I didn't know like there's a thing called pokes, like basically how you do like all your tricks and cheats and things like that. Like for Ghostbusters, for example, like hey, if you want to get more money, just hey, you just mod it this way, or you want to be invincible, do it that way. But
Oh, nice. You're talking about like peeking and poking, like direct memory access. Like
yeah,
yeah, basically like being your own game genie, kind of. I guess that's
ex-
pretty cool. I never did that on a game,
mhm.
but yeah, that's pretty cool. That sounds pretty fun.
I mean, yeah, because I know my brother and I tried because from that game he got all the way to trying to sneak past the marshmallow man. He couldn't do it, but by luck I did it. It was like seeing the ending of the game. But other than that, let's go ahead and dive right into it. What's your company called? And
So we're Reverting Castles, and it's a friend of mine started it. I think the name was inspired by sort of that we're doing games that are similar to how they were in an older time period, but also influenced by some of the newer stuff and some of the sort of mid-age stuff. I'm pretty sure that he had the inverted castle of Symphony of the Night in mind when he came up
oh
with that
yes,
name. But
oh that's good.
it was just kind of a really, I don't know, the name has a feel to it that I think captures a lot of what we're really interested in doing.
Okay, all right. Oh, let's go ahead and get into Demon's Crush. Like, how did the idea come about? Like, basically, like, what's its beginnings?
All right, so the basic idea here is a lot of us really like the Ninja Gaiden series is plural, right? So you got the NES ones and
Yes.
then the Xbox, PlayStation series. And I heard they're actually going to do another one. They're thinking about reviving it kind of soon. So that's pretty
Okay.
cool. But
All right.
what we had always imagined was like, all right, so what's between these two, right? Like here's A, the Nintendo one, and here's B, the Xbox one, but there's something between A and B there because
Right.
that's a huge jump. The one's like a platformer with really simple combat, and then the other one is like pretty simple platforming, but like a lot of different weapons and moves, and like it's clearly about the combat.
Right.
And especially if you watch that Ninja Gaiden, I'm gonna say Sigma, just so we know that I'm not talking about the NES. But if you watch that series go forward,
Right.
it gets more stripped down to like fight some guys, next room, fight some more guys. So clearly that's what they're going for. So what we thought was like, all right, but there's this giant like 10-year, maybe more gap before no Ninja Gaiden games, and we thought, all right, so what if we had something in there? What if we had like a Super Nintendo or a Genesis or like maybe a PS1, kind of like a Symphony of the Night, like
Right.
still 2D, So we thought about that, like what would that look like? And so we started working on Demon Crush there, and we got into like, all right, so we want platforming that's kind of a little bit more than what the old 8-bit games did, but it's still like run and jump, wall kick, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And also we want beat 'em up combo, so a couple of light strikes, lift the guy into the air combo, that kind of thing. What can we do? What can we do in that case? And that's kind of where we got our basic idea.
Okay. What did you use to develop the game? Was it like Unreal Engine? Was it some other software that you had to use?
It was Unreal Engine. I should disclose that I work for Epic Games, so anything I say it doesn't represent them, but just I don't want to like not represent that I work there and sort of like puff up the what I mean, like just
Right.
full disclosure. But yeah, so we use Unreal Engine. We're in UE5 and we're using its 2D tool set.
Okay.
And yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's a lot of fun to do. 2D stuff isn't what you normally associate with them, because normally you think of like the Lumen and the Nanite and like the high
Right.
end like realistic stuff or like the Mandalorian kind of things.
Yeah.
But it does this too. So we decided to use that, and it was really helpful to have all of the engine's features for like editing data assets and for like all the management and like the level streaming, all that kind of stuff. It's really great not to write that yourself. I've written engines before myself for just my own personal projects, but the problem with that is you kind of spend all your time writing the engine, like
Mhm.
every time, okay, but I want the audio system to do this new thing, or like, I want sprites to render this way. I want shaders and materials to work like this. You have to write all that. So it
Right.
takes away the time that you would be developing the game, and you end up kind of having to pick if you're making an engine or a game because you can't do both unless you have a substantial team.
Okay. Um. What about your role in the game? It's like, did you work on it alone? Do you have like a team around you?
Yeah, we have a team. So I'm the director on this. I do most, but not all of the engineering work and like the combat design, that kind of thing. But yeah, we have a team. We have people who are doing. We have like sound expert. We have people who are doing the more like sort of math code, like the real behind the scenes stuff that you don't really
Okay.
see, but it matters. And we got people doing level editing, artists. We have 2 artists on the thing.
Uh-huh.
So we work through all this kind of stuff. I mean, we even have a person on it who contributes to gameplay and that kind of thing, but who also
Right.
does our sort of like IT stuff. Like making sure that our source control servers are up and all that kind of thing. It's really important to have all those tools because any failure on the chain can slow the whole team down. So yeah, we,
Right.
we got a pretty good team. It's about 10 people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We started out really small, like 2 people, but it works a lot better when you get a couple more.
Yeah. As I always say, like teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Other than that, because it's kind of cool, like the way you guys come together. Like somebody's cool at a specific, job, and that way play with each other's strengths. Just create a project like this.
Yeah, and we just have kind of a lot of common taste in video games and all that kind of stuff. A lot of us do sort of like martial arts stuff. Some of us met doing that, and you know, I don't know, people who do that kind of stuff tend to like video games about that kind of stuff too. So it sort of worked out that way that we could get like, hey, let's put like a little bit of authenticity into this while still keeping the arcadey video game air combos and like the fun stuff. So
Okay.
yeah, it's been pretty interesting putting all that together.
All right. I'll probably dive more about it in a bit. But first, like, is there a story without giving too much away?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I don't know how not to give too much away, but yeah, I mean, crazy story. We got all the we got like the time traveling castle kind of stuff. We felt like we really wanted to make a little nod to like the old Ninja Gaiden and Castlevania games. So you've got that. You've got like a like evil castle that travels through time. You got like a samurai warlord who's got a demon who he's trying to like use to like keep himself in power and sort of like run his own like cult based army. But then of course the demons are always power hungry too. So you've got like the internal struggles there, and we've got like the lord that he overthrows to get his castle has this like ninja clan that serves under him, and so some of them are still alive at the end and are just like they got nothing left except revenge. So you have the ninja guy and like I will get my revenge kind of scenes in there, and then you have the guy who's like your classic hero, maybe a little bit like a Castlevania hero, but one of those like defending the village kind of thing. Like no real ambitions, no real like not looking for a fight, but definitely not running away from one. So
Right.
yeah, I mean we got all that stuff in there, and a real challenge for this. We one of the team members is also a writer, incidentally, but a real challenge for this was we wanted to keep the action pacing going, and we wanted it to be like really accessible to people who don't want to like stop and read text for 5 minutes in the middle of action games. And I
Right.
know the old NES Ninja Gaidens managed it, but like we want to do this with no text. Kind of like
Right.
Hyper Light Drifter, how there's just like no text in the game. You could get through that whole game, and if you didn't speak the same language as the developer, it wouldn't matter because it's just
Right.
all. So that was an interesting story challenge since you bring story up. Yeah, yeah, really cool. Trying to figure out how to tell it all like comic book panel, silent movie style.
Yeah. Does like the main hero have a name or something like that? I mean, since you already discussed probably a little about his background.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. So the guy's name is Kenzo, and he comes from this clan named Yagimoto, which is a like it's like sort of you know how like in movies like Star Wars you get names that are like that kind of sounds like a
Yeah.
person's name, but like not quite. Like Anakin is not a real person's name, or Obi-Wan
Right.
is not a real person's name, but it sounds like it's believable.
You're
So
right.
we went for that feel. We wanted this to feel like a Japanese game that like
Mhm.
never came over to the US. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like kind of like
Right.
Final Fantasy. It's like
Right.
two is actually four, and because there are all these games that like never came over here until
Yeah.
later they did. So we wanted to get that kind of feeling a little bit. So we
Okay.
created them with like sort of like the equivalent of an Anakin or an Obi-Wan name, but with like a Japanese background. So that's
Yeah.
kind of him there. He's this like mountain warrior guy who's based on uh, Okinawan martial arts and the Iga and Koga ninja from like the Japanese Civil War era.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Yeah, because I get a hint like a little bit of Hanzo Hattori, like mixing with Ryu and probably probably something like from Samurai Showdown, like from what I'm getting what you're talking about. But yeah, plus like the you probably mix in a little bit of Kurosawa in there. Like,
Oh yeah, I mean we've all seen some Kurosawa films in our time. Yeah, classic.
yeah, because it's always cool like to come up like look at past influence like Kurosawa, Bruce Lee, and other martial art movies back then. It's like I mean, of course, I mean with Bruce Lee, of course I wasn't alive when he was alive, but just seeing his movies later, I was like, oh man, he was all about like Way of the Dragon or AKA Return of the Dragon. You're like him and Chuck Norris fighting in the Coliseum, like one of the best martial art fights of all time. It's like this is really cool. And fast forward to the '80s, and seeing the ninja movies like with Sho Kosugi, like the ninja trilogies, like oh man, those were epic. And of course, you can't forget Sony Chiba, those violent Street Fighter movies.
Oh yeah. I really loved how Kosugi did his, like he said at one point he hopes that someday he could be in a good movie, but
Right.
but even though he had the humility to say that, or just the self-awareness to realize what he was in, every one of his fight scenes, he does something like interesting and different. Like he really, even if he didn't, think too highly of the movies that he was in,
Right.
he really put in the effort, and his choreography was always like really cool, really interesting stuff. I heard, by the way, that his son was the motion capture actor for Ryu Hayabusa in the 3D Ninja Gaiden games.
Oh, it must be his older son, Kane.
Yeah, and also that he was in.
He was in that awful Dead or Alive movie.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, he was in that one.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he. I think he played Ryu in that one.
I think he also did. What was it? Oh yeah, Onikage in Tenshu. You can tell that jumping, like the sideways jumping scissor kick thing. That's like one of his favorite moves, and that was definitely in there.
Yeah, because I remember one of his earlier movies, of course, with his dad, like Revenge of the Ninja. Because out of the trilogy, that was basically my favorite of the three. Because his son's name, of course, his real name is Kane. His character in the movie was Kane. Because he saved him as a boy, and of course, he said to defend him and stuff like early in the movie and a little bit later, and stuff like that. And of course, like seeing him older and like one of his more adult films was like, okay, yeah, he started to do his own thing, opposite his dad,
Yeah, and I think he did some movies with Scott Adkins too.
I remember Ninja Assassin, but of course, Sho was the main villain in that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because the actor's name was Rain. Rain was the main guy in that one.
Yeah, that was fairly recent though, right? That was
that was back in 2009. That was
2009?
Yeah, 13 years ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, because I never seen it in the theater. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. That one looked pretty awesome.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I remember all that too. For me, the Bruce Lee movie was Enter the Dragon, I think. But yeah, I don't know what happened with Game of Death. I forget like why that didn't get released or something, or released on a delay.
Well, the story of it is like he completed some of the scenes, but of course, he had to put that on hold to finish up Enter the Dragon, but he was unable to finish because he died. He passed away in his sleep.
Yeah.
So basically, Robert Klaus, he came up with that awful version, the one that we saw back in '78, and Chuck Norris, he threatened to file a lawsuit in it. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, that wasn't really him in the movie. Like seeing him at the beginning, the tall Hakeem, like the assassin guy, that was a stunt double. That the scene that Kareem really done is where the fight scenes with Bruce Lee, like him, the pagoda, that was the real fight. If you have like the DVD version of Enter the Dragon, there's like one of the extras. It shows you like the films, like the scenes that he done, like the true story of it.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was some. I didn't know there was like a lawsuit and all that other stuff. I mean, I knew obviously it got delayed because he died, but yeah, I thought they completed filming and it was something else. I didn't know that full story. I'm gonna have to go and look up the full backstory sometime on that.
Oh yeah, because like there was also a sequel to it, but there was some other extra scenes of him in there. But of course, he was only at the beginning, and of course there was another actor, finishing out the rest of the movie. He was like his character's brother, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also a sequel to Chinese Connection, aka Fist of Fury. I mean, it's funny how they switched the titles around. Like his first one, The Big Boss. Of course, over here it was Fist of Fury.
Oh yeah, that's right. I only knew that one as The Big Boss. Yeah.
Because I never was like on Cinemax. Me and my brother and I would watch it. It was under the alternative titles, like I said, Fist of Fury, Chinese Connection, Return of the Dragon, or things like that. But of course, I found out like the true titles of them. But at that time, Way of the Dragon, that was the only movie he directed.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah,
That was the only one? Oh, I didn't realize that. Huh.
yeah, and then some of the guys that were filming, I guess some of the actors, like they were on their visas were used up, so he had to film really quick and then get them out of the country so they don't get caught.
Yeah, I remember reading a lot about that, how there were like conflicts between the way that American and like Hong Kong film crews
Yeah,
wanted to do stuff, and there was a lot of like needing to remind each other, like, hey, we all actually want to make a movie here. Nobody's trying to sabotage this. But
right.
I mean, that's what happens when you're pioneering something like that. I don't know. Yeah, that was really cool stuff.
Yeah, because like that was the only movie I've seen, Chuck Norris play a villain, even though he spoke 3 lines.
Yeah, yeah, that was his big that was his first movie. That was his big break.
Yeah. Yeah, because like the rest of the way, he played nothing but hero because he didn't want to play the villain. And also, like since you mentioned Enter the Dragon, of course, Jackie Chan, yeah, he had a bit part in there too. That was his
Yeah,
first time I seen him play a villain, even though he got beat up.
he died in 2 seconds in that movie.
Yeah,
But
and then of course his best friend, Sammo Hung, fought Bruce Lee at the beginning. It's like, like how big he got after that.
yeah, 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 man, Jackie Chan's another one. Just such amazing stunt work and choreography, and yeah, great stuff.
Oh yeah, because the guy that the actor Jim Kelly that played Williams, of course he was born here in Kentucky, so and then of course became a star during the '70s, and he kind of retired for a while. Then he came out of retirement. He ended up being in a Nike commercial with LeBron James, and up until he passed away.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, it's called the Chamber of Fear.
I'm gonna go look that up. Okay.
Yeah, because you get to the part, it's like there's a bunch of soul brothers, like repeating from the master, and then that was him at front, and they're playing the haters on there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to
Yeah,
look up.
I'll
But
check that out.
all right. But as far as that go, what about the presentation of the game? Like, is there cut scenes? Like, there's like a musical score. I know that you have like a sound guide. Like, there's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah. So yeah, we use cutscenes similar to NES Ninja Gaiden. Like we use comic panels and that kind of thing. It's a little more animated than that because we're not constrained by actually doing this on a on an NES console. So yeah, we use basically like lightly animated like comic panel type scenes.
yeah.
So we tell the story wordlessly in there, and we score those. We use a couple different composers, and one of the things that we do with music is actually kind of fun. Is we have this whole system. Remember, I was saying we have like some behind the scenes like math kind of code.
Yeah.
So one of the things we do is we have code that's running that sort of analyzes what's going on in the game, like how high health is the player, how many enemies are nearby you, how many hits have been scored in the last couple seconds, how rapidly are you pressing any attack button, all sorts of stuff like that to figure out roughly how intense the game is, like
Hmm.
what's going on the screen. So we use these kind of like sort of like lightweight data analytics methods as we're playing the game to determine like how much motion is going on, how much combat is going on, like how intense is this, and then we take those and we put them into the music system so that we like can ramp up the intensity of the music. So we have like multi-layered music that we can ramp up as the scene's getting more intense, and then like cool it off if you slow down and you're doing more like exploration, or you finish a fight and you're just catching your breath or whatever. So the
Yeah.
music kind of has to match the mood and intensity of what's going on in the game. That was a really interesting thing to work on. But yeah, I think little systems like that you'd never really notice. They kind of add a lot to the game because it just feels like the game is matching your mood while you're playing, without coming right out and telling you.
Oh yeah, because that's great. Because yeah, like out of the trilogy on the NES, I mean that's one that drew me to it was like the cutscenes in between, like after going through the level, and just got engaged with the story. Like Ryu is like one of my favorite protagonists, like on the NES, like especially what happened with his dad. They used what they had at that time, and but of course, like behind the scenes, I know like I think over like Temo in Japan, like whoever did the writing, like they had to bring it over here to America. That it was rough translation, so there was a lot of bad grammar. But I mean, that's what you love about it, especially like some of the old school kung fu movies, like seeing the lines that are being dubbed. It's just hilarious. But
I remember that. So it was just terrible old dubs where like there's no lip sync whatsoever, and it's not even timed right. I mean, it's not just that the mouth movement doesn't match up. It's that it's like 3/4 of a second off.
I know.
That's part of the charm, though, right?
Right. Exactly. But
yeah.
All right. Let's get on to the gameplay, the meat and potatoes of it. How is it? Is a mixture of like platforming? Because I know you can tag enemies and things like that. You get like power ups, things like that to help up along this journey.
Yeah. So you get a couple of different weapons, but they're all accessible at all times. So you don't have to you switch weapons by doing different moves. It just switches them as you go. So that way there's no pause screen menu management. We kind of wanted to avoid that sort of thing because we wanted to keep the action going. So you're doing platforming, and it's wall jumping, crumbling floors, timing your way through traps, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And you fight all sorts of different enemies. So you have like your usual like samurai warrior enemies, and they got swords and spears and stuff like that. Some of them have rifles or like explosive incendiary bombs and stuff like that. But you're also fighting beasts. We didn't set it on Earth too, so we could get a little more freedom with with the creatures that you fight. Yeah. And then also at some point in the game, you cause enough trouble that your enemy's internal conflict kind of boils over, and you start getting like demons getting summoned in. So then we can really go nuts with it. Have giant flying monsters shooting fireballs at you, that kind of thing. And it's all the stuff that you would think of when you think of like a Ninja Gaiden type game, where it's like you have different combos. We designed it to be, and this was a little bit of work that I had to put some time in on. We designed it to be high skill is rewarded. So when you're doing the exact right combos that you want to do, you get like damage multipliers and that kind of stuff, and you get the stylishness that you want. But also it's friendly for button mashers. Like we spend a lot of time. I won't go into the exact details, but we spend a lot of time going into like how we manage your input code and your buffering and all that, so that we have a really good guess of what you mean to do. Mm-hmm. And then that way we can kind of get the character to do stuff that's like reasonable and that feels good all the time. So we do all that kind of stuff, and then of course we also have the you build up your combo enough, and you get access to your super moves, and you can do the crazy 15 hit combos, or blast like a ring of lightning around the screen, that kind of classic stuff.
I mean, yeah, because you always love those moves that like, hey, something clears the screen for the enemies if you can get into a tight spot. But I mean, I feel what you're saying, because I don't like games like that. Like I gotta pause just to switch weapons, so kind of slows down the flow of it. Like it's it's kind of cool. You can do like a flip of events. Oh, I can switch this weapon, just keep on going. Things like that.
Yeah. We made the key word there was adrenaline. We always said like, all right, does this stop the adrenaline flowing? Don't do it. Right. And we did something else with our level design too. That's I don't know how often this is done, but it doesn't seem to be too common. So we think we're being clever anyway. I don't know if we are, but we designed our levels to be kind of like Zelda dungeons, where you can you can go different directions and you get the key here and then you come back here. But think like Zelda 1, where there's really some exploration. It's not like hand holding you. Mm-hmm. But we also made it so that every level can be completed in a single combo, right? So that is like, obviously you don't get hit, but also you don't stop hitting enemies for more than a couple seconds at a time. Right. So if you know the route, you can theoretically get through the entire level in one combo, and that's like the super mastery feat of it. But if you're a new player, you can stop and take breaths when you want to, and like explore or think about what way you want to go. And we give you clever stuff you can do, like if you notice that there's like a locked door somewhere, it might not be the closest place to where you get the key, but you might be able to like skip a fight or get an upgrade early if you remember it, and go back and use the key that way instead of continuing forward to the obvious place to use the key. So stuff like that for players who like to pay more attention and like find tricky ways around things.
Okay.
I have a little story about that, just a little one, and this is what kind of inspired it. So Zelda 1, that first level 1 of that, the eagle, right?
Right.
In that dungeon, there are 2 keys you can pick up. I think there are like 6 keys in the whole dungeon and 6 locked doors, so that kind of lines up. But there are 2 locked doors in that dungeon that if you use bombs in the right places, you can get to both sides of the locked door without ever having used a key to unlock the door. And if you're just willing to do that and leave that door unlocked and like really pay attention and not just grab a key and then use it impulsively, you can save yourself 2 keys, which means in the next dungeon or in some later dungeon where there's a key that's like way out of the way and a huge pain to get, you got the extra keys, so you can get that reward for having figured that out. And that was really inspirational to me. Like you don't see that in later Zelda games, but that was one of the things that inspired that design. So yeah, all about keeping that adrenaline going for the players who want it. And if you need to take a breath or you want to do some thinking, we kind of support that too.
All right, that's cool. All right, what platforms do you plan to put this on? Like PC, probably to start off, or a console?
Well, we're definitely starting off PC because that's just there's no certification process like with there is, but there's no. It's not like with Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo. We really want to see this thing on Switch and PlayStation and Xbox. Like we really want to see it on all those platforms. And we know UE5 runs really well on those. So we fully expect that we can get it on all those running great. Shouldn't be too much difficulty, but those will be things we do later just because you have to you have to interact with the platform holding companies and go through their approval and certification process. And having several of us having really AAA games in the past, we know that it's like, all right, like prepare because they can not answer your email for 3 months or whatever. So I think indie gamers in general or indie game developers in general should do it that way. Like PC first, and then if you're doing a Kickstarter, you make the other platforms like stretch goals, or you at least say like, hey, this is going to be a PC exclusive for a little while, and then it'll come to consoles because you kind of have to. Otherwise, you're just delaying your PC release when you kind of for no reason.
Right. Yeah, because I'll probably like you want to release this game like on Steam, because since that's like the popular place to drop them.
Yeah, definitely Steam and Epic Game Store and all that. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I always like to ask like every developer this, like, say like your game takes off, it succeeds. Like, do you plan on expanding it, like adding extra levels, like expansions or DLC, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we've had some thoughts about things like challenge modes and that kind of stuff that we'd want to put in there. A lot of times games have really fun things. Like, I mean, the classic like boss rush or like a mission mode, challenge rooms for like the high end skill where we can go like, because I think what happens is when you're making these games, you discover that there are all these cool like skills you can do and these really, not necessarily frame precise, but you know what I mean, like these hard to pull off tricks. And so you want to be like, hey players, did you know you can even do this? Check out this challenge level where you have to do it to beat the challenge level, because you don't want to put that in the regular game and like as a gatekeeper to regular players, like you can't beat the game unless you can do this crazy thing.
Right.
But you do want to show players that it's there and give the high skill players a chance to like flex that a little bit. So yeah, we definitely want to do that kind of stuff. That should be really fun.
All right, that's cool. I was like, wow, it's like, I mean, basically that's all the questions. I mean, you basically like checked all the boxes of everything. Yeah, because like a game like this, I definitely like this right up my alley. Because I mean, like all the samurai games, ninja games, played over the years. Like, shoot, I like seeing this game in action. It's like, someday I like to play it.
I hope so, man. I hope you do. I'll have to get you a build when we're a little closer. Maybe in a little bit we'll have a build. We'll have to send you one. We got in development builds and everything like that now, of course, but send you a nice polished one. But yeah, and one thing about making this game that's really good. Like I said, I work in the games industry full time anyway, so I was very fortunate to be permitted to do this. By the way, for anyone who's working in the game industry, if you want to do something like this, get that thing signed when you join the company. Like whenever you get a job,
Right.
get them to sign off that it's okay for you to do this ahead of time, because
Right.
otherwise you're not going to be able to do it. But
Right.
but yeah, but anyway, because of that, because we don't like need it to pay our bills, it
Right.
gives us this really unique position where we're all experienced like game developers, and we do this professionally. We really like, I mean, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we know our stuff, right? We
Right.
do it professionally. But since we're not depending on it to like pay for our food,
Right.
it gives us real artistic and like creative freedom. So there's not like a publisher that comes in and is like, well, could we skew toward this market a little more? And hold on, we want to change 3/4 of your game, which
Right.
I've had happen to me at jobs before.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, you have to, because they keep
Right.
the lights on. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's really great to have the opportunity to do a genuine like passion art project,
Uh-huh.
but also do it with people who have the AAA skill level. I feel so fortunate to have that. I'm really grateful for my team and to be able to direct something like this.
Yeah, because like I said, I had to, commend everyone, including yourself, like the way you worked on this game, like y'all came together and uh, created, such a great game. So,
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks.
all right. Yeah, you're welcome. Um, yeah, but before we get out of here, so go ahead and give her outro and like tell everyone where they can find you at.
Yeah, so we're on Twitter at Demon Crush Game, just all one word on Twitter, Demon Crush Game. And our website is up at, well, no one goes to websites, but our website with a couple of blog entries where we write about some, development stuff, and we're going to have more information as time goes up. That's on revertingcastles.com. I think that's been on the screen the entire time.
Yeah.
So they know where that is. And we are
already posted it.
we're doing a Kickstarter probably in April. We're shooting for April for that. So expect that, and the Kickstarter will include a demo level. So you'll actually have a playable demo on there.
Okay, it's cool. All right, everyone. Like I said, I'm your host, Sinister. You can follow me on my social medias. I mean, I'm at Twitter on KANO19, and I'm also on Instagram at Sinister1019. And that concludes the interview with the dev. Richard, thank you for coming. I'm talking about your experience and everything. Definitely enjoying. It's been an honor interviewing you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. All right, y'all. Hope y'all have a good night.